FM News Talk 97.1. On demand audio.
FBI Director Comey today referring to this email case about Hillary Clinton. So now the ball is kind of passed over to the Department of Justice, where, as the Attorney General said, career investigators will look at this evidence from the FBI before deciding or making a decision about whether any charges would go forward, which really seems highly doubtful at this point, doesn't it? We are fortunate enough to be joined right now by Catherine Hanaway, who is not only former U.S. attorney, she's also a candidate for governor here in the state of Missouri. Catherine, how are you?
Well, I'm really good, and I am really, really shocked by the announcement today. And also, I want to make sure that I heard something that I was listening to in your commercial break correctly. Was there actually a commercial that just ran from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security encouraging all of us to have secure passwords to protect our data?
I think there probably was a PSA to that effect, yes.
I mean, is that not the most hypocritical, greatest hypocrisy you can imagine, that our federal government would be putting out ads like that right now on the very day that the Democratic candidate for president has cut some, in my opinion, the only explanation is that there's been some political deal to prevent the Justice Department from pursuing Hillary Clinton after the director of the FBI says that for sure classified information was communicated over this private network. And if you look at the statutes, this private unprotected network, non-government network, if you look at the statutes, she didn't knowingly have to leak this information. She just had to be grossly negligent. The director of the FBI even said there was evidence that this material was transmitted over unsecured networks, and then he said no reasonable prosecutor would charge her. I guess he's calling the people who charged Petraeus unreasonable. There was a naval reservist who got charged last summer when all that was shown was that he stored some files on his personal computer. I'm sure as a matter of convenience. Were those unreasonable prosecutors? I think there's lots of reasonable prosecutors who would take this case and charge Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I wondered about that. When I heard the Attorney General say last week that she was going to let this be handled completely by the career attorneys below her and not the political appointees. But with this recommendation, what would be the likelihood that any of them would try to charge? Politically, they're not going to do that.
I think it'd be very difficult to take this case now to a grand jury when you have the director of the FBI saying that he doesn't believe any reasonable prosecutor would charge the case. Because the way a case gets indicted is you either take it to the grand jury or you go in front of a judge on a preliminary hearing to start the process. And he's just created. He's already prejudged the facts and come to a conclusion for any prosecutor and any grand jury that might look at this case.
Mm-hmm. So that's that may have been the most surprising part of this for you.
It really was, because Jim Comey was a prosecutor himself. He has a strong record of independence and standing up for what's right. So I can only imagine the kind of political pressure that's being applied to him and to the Department of Justice to make sure that Hillary Clinton is not held accountable.
Yeah, it seemed so promising for the first 2/3 of his news conference today. I would agree with you completely on that. Well, it's interesting because I figured as someone who used to be in a situation of being handed information like that, at least from the FBI cases here locally, you might be able to shed some light on it for us, and I appreciate that.
And, it's so contrary to every time I got a case from the FBI, which was that they were usually pushing for indictment.
Right.
That's what was so striking about this. When he said there's evidence, oh, but no reasonable prosecutor would indict.
Yeah, please. Catherine, how are things going on the campaign trail?
Oh, fantastic! We had just a great 4th of July weekend. We were all over the state. Even with the weather, the crowds that were turning out for all these parades and festivals were huge. I think patriotism in America and people caring about the process is at an all-time high. And, I think it's because they're fed up with the current leadership. They still love their country, but they want new leadership. And so I was very encouraged to see all these people out, and hopefully they're all going to come out and vote in the August 2nd primary.
Well, I know the importance of getting the right person in that governor's office the next time around, because as we've seen from a couple of recent Supreme Court decisions, I mean, there's a growing chance we're going to see an assault on our Second Amendment rights, and also with this Texas decision out of the Supreme Court, efforts to fight abortion are going to falter in some states as well, maybe even Missouri. And I know both of those are issues that are near and dear to your heart.
Absolutely, Mark. As you know, 12, 13 years ago when I was Speaker of the House, we passed concealed carry for the first time in our state's history. We ended public funding of abortions in our state. But unless we have a governor going into the next 8 years who is willing to stand up for the right to life, and I'm really pleased to have the Missouri Right to Life endorsement, and who's willing to stand up for Second Amendment rights, I think you'll see lawyers and litigators and liberals challenging every abortion law that is considered by the legislature, and it's going to take a strong governor to lead on pro-life legislation and to lead on Second Amendment legislation.
I believe when we had our forum out here in Lindenwood University, this situation was addressed with a question that we asked to all the candidates. But I heard Jay Johnson, the Department of Homeland Security, mention the other day that they're about to let in the first 5,000 Syrian refugees, and I don't know where they're going to be relocated to exactly. And they were planning on another 5,000 or 6,000 to at least get to that 10,000 level that the president had discussed. You've spoken about that before, and efforts to at least step in as much as a governor can impact that, and try to stop it. Is there a way to stop it?
Absolutely. I think that there is a way to stop it, and we've seen a majority of governors around the rest of the country say that they do not want to have refugees from state sponsors of terrorism relocated to their states until we can do a complete and thorough and real background check to make sure we're not importing terrorists to the United States. And part of the way that those other governors have made sure that they don't get refugees relocated there is to stand up and say, look, we're not going to provide welfare benefits if you relocate any of these people here. And once you take that away, there's a lot less incentive to come to any particular state. Unfortunately, Governor Nixon continues to welcome these refugees even when we don't really know who they are and what kind of agenda they might be bringing with them to our state.
Yeah, it's easy for the folks that are in favor of this to try to paint us as evil for not wanting to accept these refugees, but I think they want to ignore the facts that we don't have a very good process for vetting these people at this point.
Absolutely, and we saw it in California. Those people who were the attackers there supposedly had been through the vetting process and passed the vetting process, and yet made it into the United States and were able to commit acts of terrorism here. And so what we have to do is take our time on this. We still want to be the charitable, generous, peace-loving nation that we have always been. Those are important core values. We are a nation built by immigrants, but we were not built by terrorists coming here with radical motivations to destroy our country. We were built by people who came here seeking freedom and wanting to be a part of all that is great in America. And we have to be able to figure out who's in which category before we just throw open the gates wholesale.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Catherine Hanaway, best of luck in your race for governor. I'll direct people to your website, hanawayforgovernor.com, so they can read more about where you stand on a lot of these issues. Thanks for giving us some time today.
Thanks so much, Mark. I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care of yourself. Catherine Hanaway there. Thought it'd be interesting to get her take as a former U.S. attorney on this decision by the FBI today and maybe where it goes from here. Good. Coming up in our next hour, more to come here. We are going to talk to John Bruner, who's also a candidate for governor in the state of Missouri. He's going to be in studio with us here right after the top of the hour. And Congressman John Shimkus. Ask him in for a couple of reasons. He's going to call us to discuss this gun bill that Jared Halpern was talking about a few minutes ago and exactly what it is Paul Ryan is going to have the House voting on this week, maybe as early as tomorrow, and also his reaction to the Clinton email scandal. Seems to be on everybody's mind right now. 314-969-9797, 866-455-9797. We're back in just a minute.